If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, broadcasting live every Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central from Panama City Beach, Florida, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining me on my weekly broadcast. Every week, I'll feature some of the best instructors, coaches, authors, and entrepreneurs in the golf business today. I begin with a great discussion on Coach's Corner, followed by an insightful interview with my special guest. So let's get started by introducing tonight's Coach's Corner panel. All right, good evening, everybody, and just a slight program note change. There will not be a Coach's Corner tonight. My apologies, I played the wrong intro. Instead, I've got a really good show lined up. This evening is actually going to be dedicated to the men and women who currently serve the military and, of course, are veterans. In order to fulfill that honor, I have canceled, as I said, the Coach's Corner segment in order to make room for this evening's special guest. And I've got a real powerhouse, if you will, on tonight's show, and I'm going to introduce them here in just a minute. Rich O'Brien, co-founder and operations manager of PGA Hope in the Charleston, South Carolina area. And joining him is going to be Sean Matthew Schrum, who is a lead commander center controller at the United States Coast Guard, also in Charleston. And then a little bit later on in the show, after I'm finished with these two gentlemen, Ted Simons, the president and executive director of Patriot Golf Foundation, is going to be joining me. So really, really excited to have all these guys. And as most of you know, that you were probably getting ready to tune in last week to hear Rich and Sean. And unfortunately, we ended up having some technical issues and were not able to proceed with the show. So I apologize for that, and I will certainly apologize to my guests here in just a moment in person. But I want to thank everybody again for tuning into the show tonight. Just a quick program note: the show's sponsors of Golf Talk Live is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. iGolf Sports Network is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PGA and LPGA teacher professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So subscribe today to golftipsmag.com. All right, as I mentioned, my special guest to start the show off is Rich O'Brien. I'm going to start with him. He is the co-founder and operations manager of PGA Hope in Charleston. He was a former college golf coach that was also a mental and short game coach for a number of LPGA Tour players. But a near fatal accident 11 years ago changed the trajectory of his life when he suffered 50-odd injuries, including 8 that were normally fatal. And it was literally by the grace of God he survived and was able to get up literally from his deathbed. We're going to talk more about that. Also going to be joining him is Sean Matthew, as I mentioned, Schrum, lead command center controller with the United States Coast Guard. They have a very interesting relationship. Sean was born in Canton, Ohio back in 1960 and enlisted in the U.S. Coast Guard under the Delayed Entry Program in 1977. He's devoted to his church, Our Lady of God Council on Foley Beach, and is a member of the Men's Club, which provides support to many causes. And he's also helping with the PGA Hope program of Charleston as well. So please welcome my very special guest, Rich O'Brien and Sean Schrum. Good evening, gentlemen.
Sean. Forward to it.
All right, I appreciate it, and I guess it would help if I livened your mics up a bit so everybody could hear you. So I apologize for that. I'm glad. Thank you guys first off for both joining me tonight. And as I was mentioning to everybody, and I know you heard, I ran into a little bit of a technical issue last week, and we had to literally the very last moment had to cancel the show. So I wanted to make quick order and bring you guys back and give you an opportunity to come on and share a little bit of what you're doing with the PGA Hope program and also a little bit of backstory between the two of you. So, Rich, I'm going to start with you. And, as I mentioned, you obviously were a golf coach and had worked with a number of different players and that. What drew you to the game of golf?
Well, the thing about golf was very interesting. My uncle gave me a lesson when I was age 12, and I was always very athletic, and I found golf to be fascinating. I just was, so passionate about the game starting out, and kind of consumed me from that aspect. And after he gave me a few tips, within 2 years, I was, nearly a scratch player on that side. And my backyard was like 2 acres, so I would wind up spending a lot of time in the backyard, not getting any trouble, and work that way. But, the game became basically I wanted to teach golf on there. That was what I really wanted to do, and tried to play for a long time as well. But the sports psych side and the coaching side is what drew me to the game, and that's I was a coach for close to 10 years on that down in South Florida before moving up here to Charleston, where I was running some golf courses. So the golf, creating passionate golfers has been my thing, I guess.
It's interesting. We all who are, have been in this business for any length of time, we all have kind of a similar story. Somebody introduced us to the game, and as you both know, this game can be very, very addictive. Even when you're not playing at your best, every once in a while you hit the sweet spot on the club, and that perfect drive or that perfect approach shot to the green, or even the putt that you line up, it just goes right in the smack dab center of the hole, and that brings you back no matter how bad your round was for the day. What's interesting, and I want to get into obviously a little bit more in a moment about what happened to you a number of years ago, but before that I just want to ask one more sort of follow-up question about your coaching and your teaching and things like that. You've taught hundreds of players how to play this game. What specifically did you enjoy the most about teaching? What part of it, was there a specific area that you enjoyed the most, or was it just the interaction and the being able to help people elevate and do something that they enjoyed?
Yeah, well, for me, it's being able to take a player's game to the next level, no matter where they're at. If somebody's shooting in the hundreds, have them break 100. If they're at 100, get them down into the 80s even, from the 80s down to the 70s and working there. I was always able to take a player's game to the next level, and it works there. I try and keep things as simple as possible and work through, and the tips usually have a very quick effect. And that's, the thing that really excites any good teacher is that aha moment when the light bulb goes off in the student's eyes, when they get it, when they start hitting the ball well, where they improve quickly. And that's really what attracted me all the time.
Yeah, I think there's something, I don't know how to explain it, and I think you've obviously done a great job. I think what's interesting about watching the progression of a player at any level, whether it's an amateur that's trying to break from a 25 or 30 handicap down to even a 10 handicap, or even a tour player level, it's interesting to watch the progression and how they're able to see their progress in real time. When you work with some of these players, and from week to week and or month to month, and all of a sudden after a short period of time you start to see that they're getting what it is that you're telling them. They're actually understanding the message you're trying to speak. I think there's no greater satisfaction as a coach or a teaching professional than that. And so it's interesting, and obviously you had a love for the game and you wanted to share that and pass that on. But unfortunately, a little bit later on through your career, as I alluded to earlier, you actually sustained a life-threatening injury. You were in a golf cart and you were ejected from that cart and spent a very long road of recovery. In fact, literally from your deathbed, and that also included an addiction to prescription painkillers, which is understandable with those who have gone through severe pain, and also battled with post-traumatic stress. and went through many, many thousands of hours, in fact, 12,000 hours of rehab. And you said that one of the things, first off, before I go on, let me say this. Tell us exactly what happened. Let's start there, and then Sean, I want you to come in because I want you, Rich, to explain the relationship between you and Sean at that point, and then we'll talk as we go on a little bit how it's developed beyond that. But explain to us what exactly happened. Walk us through the process.
All right. So late September 25th, 2008, we were down at Cacique Golf Course on Kiowa Island, and it's got the second highest point in Charleston. It's known as Mount Watson. Not many high points in the low country, but this is the second highest one. And coming in, it was starting to rain, and there's a double switchback hill. It's got a hard left-hand turn at the bottom there, so it's an S-turn. Right at the bottom, it turns hard left. Apparently, I got ejected from the golf cart right at the end there where the G-forces were the most. I go flying off and out of the golf cart, and there's a 2-inch curve at the corner of the clip path. Apparently, I threw my right shoulder underneath and made full contact with the shoulder. My head and neck snapped around, so I broke my neck and broke my back in 2 places: C1, C2, L4, L5. Had a basal skull fracture and 3 other skull fractures. I had brain damage in every lobe of my brain. Of course, my right shoulder is completely obliterated. Multiple strokes, multiple aneurysms. Started swallowing my tongue, going through the seizures there, and literally died at the scene, from what I understand. Luckily, there was a first responder that worked at the golf course, and within 5 minutes or so, he had gotten out to the scene and took control and was able to start to revive me on there. Imagine how hard it is with somebody with a broken neck having seizures to be able to give life-saving treatment there. And Paul Tamidia, the first responder that did that, absolutely amazing. I want to thank all first responders for what they do. Absolutely amazing, running to danger. And giving life-saving treatments on that side. Then the next twist of fate, as we call it, I guess, they called in the life flight. I needed to get to MUSC, which was almost 45 minutes to an hour away by car on there from Kiowa Island. Not going to make it on that time. They had to call a life flight, and then the life flight wasn't available. So then they called the Coast Guard for an emergency, and that's where Sean comes in there. Sean was the command center operator there, and I'll let y'all take it up from there.
So, Sean, you obviously, I know you remember that very well, and you and I talked briefly on the phone last week after we had to cancel the show. Obviously, we didn't get into the story, but walk from your perspective when that call came in, because obviously you were there when the call came in, and that. Tell us what happened and what was sort of going through your mind during that time.
Wow. Well, first off, I want to shoot in the 70s there, Rich, and then we'll go from there. But anyway, we'll throw a little bit in there. But anyway, I've been with the Coast Guard almost 40 years. 22 of those active duty, and almost 17 of them as a civilian. And I worked in command centers. And once you get in command centers, you answer those calls that come in for distress, and you do a gamut of things at command centers, from medevacs, which we did for Rich, and taking on water and people in the water, and all kinds of other things that you can't imagine. Overdue vessels, people running aground and being ejected from boats, the whole thing. So when you sit in command centers for a long time, you have these things come through. But anyway, I was in the command center that day when that call came in, and from the lifeline was not available, so they asked the Coast Guard, which we do all the time, can you help us out in this agency assist situation? And
right.
Of course, we're going to do that if we can. So they say, so what happened is, I was on watch that day, and they came in. Anybody know where Cacique Golf Course is? And of course, I've been around Charleston forever, so I'd worked out at Kiowa and been out there for. So yes, I am. So we had the we had the command center crew. I said, yeah, that's where it's at. And what you do is, you when those situations come into effect, you're like a team and you work.
Mm-hmm.
We got the flight surgeon's approval, told him what was going on. And we knew where it was, and we got the helicopter there, and we medevaced Rich. I mean, when you do that, you never know what you do. We do those things, and we turn on, we take care of the case, and then we get them to the hospital with the care they need, and then it just shuts off, and then you go to the next thing. And that's what happened in that situation. So, that's what we do in command centers. And if we go into that and how we got involved, that's where we're going to go. So, so I wanted to be in. I'd heard about the PGA Hope program through work, through the guys I work with and the other veterans, so I wanted to get. It was something I wanted to get involved in, and then what happened is I emailed Rich, and then probably not 10 minutes later, like I told you before, and then my phone rings in the command center, and Rich introduces himself and tells this story. What happened.
Wow.
I told and all of a sudden, the hair on the back of my head just raised, and I was like, Rich, I was in the command center that day. I was CDO in the command center, and we ran that case. And it was just amazing. And from that point, and that's where we are to this day, and how Rich and I met. So we'll go from there.
Rich, before we start into the PGA Hope, which obviously I want to give you guys plenty of time to talk about, and particularly you, Rich, that's got to be really a divine intervention, if you will, of some sorts, because of all of the people that you connected with, that could have potentially been involved, and you didn't know it obviously at the time. I mean, you had obviously more important things that you were dealing with. You were dealing with your life, but at some point you realized and came, figuratively speaking, face to face with Sean. What was your thought at that point? I mean, here's a gentleman who was at that command center when that call came in, and really was integral in getting things dispatched that saved your life. What were your thoughts?
Well, there's actually a good story that goes with that, because, the first day that Sean participated with us down at Stono Ferry, where he's a peer mentor now, on there, I met with him and Harold Hill afterwards, who's also from the Coast Guard, and we talked for a while, and I thanked them, and we shared a beer, I guess, at that point there, and working through. But we talked for a good 15, 20, 30 minutes on there, and I gave them both a copy of our book, Half Paralyzed, Twice Strong, on there, where we tell the story of my recovery in there, as well as that of Fred Gutierrez, one of our other co-founders of PGA Hope Charleston. So, it's been an amazing thing. But that was the first day we met, right, Sean?
It was a little bit after that, I think, Rich, because we had gone through the sessions, and then you said, hey, I got something really special for you, and that's when you gave me your book, and we sat in there because that's where it was, and it was just an amazing, the feeling, oh man, what you're looking for, just the feeling of meeting somebody that you helped, somebody that survived from these situations that we run all the time. I mean, you never know. I mean, we know that we save people all the time, but people go to the hospital and you never know. And then we come to meet over this great program called the PGA Hope that helps with the veterans, and it's just amazing what it means to me, and what it means to me to be involved with the veteran and Rich and the whole deal. I mean, it's just it's been very heartening for me. I've met very, very good friends. I mean, it's helped me with this program with the PGA Hope, just where I am, and especially meeting Rich. I mean, that's been one of the greatest things to meet somebody that you helped save. I mean, there you go. I mean, it's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you look at a situation like this, that initially starts out as really a tragedy and has a happy ending, it doesn't get any better than that. Obviously we all wish sometimes these circumstances would never have happened, but then I also look at the lighter side of it, and the positive upside of it is you two more than likely would have never potentially met and go on to do other great things. And first, I hope, Sean, that at that meeting where you shared a refreshment, I hope that Rich was kind enough to buy that refreshment for you. I hope he bought you that beer at that time. Or several, anyway. But
I think I did. I don't quite remember that.
He doesn't remember. Yeah, that would be a convenient time for that to happen, of course. But no, I'm quite certain it's been paid back many times. But so let's fast forward a little bit and let's talk about, now you've met, you've had a chance, Sean and Rich, to really, begin a relationship, if you will, that started, as I said, through a tragic situation, but through the powers of the good men and women in the Coast Guard and some fast thinking and fastness on your feet. Lo and behold, here we are many years down the road, and you guys are working together. So, Rich, I want you to start and talk to us and share, for just those that may be not familiar, what the PGA Hope program is, and then more specifically what it does, how it helps through its different programs and outreach, and how then we'll sort of get into how you got involved and opening up a chapter in Charleston. So let's talk about how PGA Hope, first off, what it does, what it's about, and how it reaches out to the communities.
All right. So PGA Hope stands for Helping Our Patriots Everywhere. It's a veterans golf therapy program, as we now call it. One of the terms I coined on there, but it helps veterans that want to reintegrate back into society after military service. Basically, individuals with post-traumatic stress, loss of limbs, traumatic brain injury, paralysis are some of the main challenges faced on there. And of those, one that needs a lot of help basically are veterans with post-traumatic stress, especially. We have 21 to 22 veterans a day, unfortunately, commit suicide on there. And what, from my own personal experience having PTSD, and Fred Gutierrez, his own experience having PTSD, and then Perry Green, our other co-founder, his son having PTSD, that was something near and dear to our hearts on that side. And I think previous to that point, the PGA didn't quite really understand the post-traumatic stress need as well on there. And that's one of the things here in Charleston that we did, was we started to really focus on the post-traumatic stress side. We work with the veterans, the Vet Center here in Charleston, which is the PTSD counseling especially, and working through there. And lo and behold, 5 years ago when we started, we wound up having 5 veterans the first time we did it. But we had a great story in that first time, and one that, the veteran that made such progress allowed me to share a story anonymously. And that story went nationally for the PGA, and a lot of other chapters across the country. A lot of VAs started to take notice kind of what we were doing, and became the model program here in Charleston. We went from 5 veterans the first time we did it to 19 the second. The third time we did it, we had 33. So we had to add a second site. We added Daniel Island. The first one was at Westcott. Next time we had 55, so we added a third chapter. That was at Stono Ferry. Then we went to 90. We added a fourth one at the Naval Weapons Station on Joint Base Charleston. So as we kept growing, we kept expanding, and we became all around the Charleston area. And the thing that really drove the recruitment were other veterans telling, when a veteran had a good time with the program and learned a lot, they told other veterans that it was working, that it was good. And the vet centers did it, and then the veterans did it there. So quite amazing along those lines. But, we've been featured, PGA Hope Charleston's been featured by CBS Sports a number of times now. We're going to have another feature on us coming up in the coming months leading up to the PGA Championship this time here. But, it's been amazing to see, we've got such a great team with our PGA professionals, especially Perry Green and Josh Wagaman here in Charleston, that our team, working through, we're able to get things done and make a difference in our veterans' lives along those lines. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think anything that we can do to help those that have served and have come back whether it's a physical injury or post-traumatic stress, as you suggest, you have to do whatever we can to help them. Let me ask you, obviously, as we talked about at the top of the program, your trade, if you will, is you were a golf coach and you were able to use those talents. What made you decide or come up with the idea that golf was going to be a venue or an avenue to help these soldiers? What put in your mind golf is something I think could help these folks deal with some of the situations that they've had to deal with?
Well, as we said, I had my own injuries. I had 50 injuries, more than 10 broken bones and major elements. I dealt with serious neurological issues, post-traumatic stress, addiction to pain meds. As I did my own recovery, it took 12,000 hours of rehab over close to 4 years. Now, that's 3,000 hours a year. That's 60 to 70 hours a week at that point, right? That's a lot of time spent on therapy and exercise and meditation, acupuncture. I tried everything to find out what worked for me. And the amazing thing was that as I found my answer in scalp acupuncture and meditation and some other things that way, it helped me. And then Fred Gutierrez, our partially paralyzed friend who I wrote Half Paralyzed, Twice Strong with on there, Fred saw me recover, and he said, "Do you think you could teach me how to play golf?" Well, Fred is paralyzed the entire left side of his body. He had a gunshot wound to the head. Paralyzed top of his head to the bottom of his foot on the left side. Imagine trying to teach somebody that's only has half a body to work with that way there, but I told him I would help him any way I can, and he started off. He was shooting in I guess over 200 to start, but somehow got it down to like 140s before too long. And then I started working with him, and within 5 months, he was shooting in the 90s, and
wow.
he could walk more than 27 holes. And so the idea that we had throughout was he was going to walk 36 holes and shoot in the 80s. Now imagine going from 130s, 140s down to the 80s in 6 months or less. Kind of an unheard of improvement, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah, and it raises a very interesting thought here, Rich. When we see so many of our recreational golfers who struggle to break 100, in fact, the stats are basically 50% of all recreational golfers struggle to break 100, and that's with two good arms, two good hands, two good legs, and so on. Not dealing with what Fred had. It makes you wonder that a man who is basically using half his body is able to shoot, comfortably in the 90s and walk 27 holes. It makes you wonder, maybe we have to rethink golf instruction a little bit, you know what I mean? Because something's just not working right if we can't get some of our better off folks out there physically to do the same, get the same results.
Right. And exactly on that side, and the amazing thing was, March 5th, 2013, we had the For the Glory to God golf marathon, and that day the Golf Channel covered us and everything that way. We had 60 to 70 spectators there. Fred goes out and shoots 85-95 and walks 36 holes, 8 miles, paralyzed on the left side of the body. It was one of the most unbelievable feats in golf history I've ever seen at that point. And, I was exhausted afterwards because I was his opponent, I was his caddy, I was playing partner, I was the PR agent, the whole thing that day on that side. But it was absolutely amazing. And then when the PGA saw our story, they asked Fred and I to champion the Hope chapter here in Charleston. So it's been a long road from there. That was over 5 years ago now, but 7 since the golf marathon. But absolutely an amazing ride, and very fulfilling to help somebody overcome. And now Fred
Right.
I mentored Fred, now Fred mentoring others, and we grew the peer mentor program from there. And Sean is now part of that peer mentor program. So, from that side, the benefits of being a peer mentor might be something good for Sean to describe.
Right. So, Sean, let's do that. Let's talk about your involvement, how you got. Obviously, you've become friends with Rich in what would typically be a different scenario than what we would typically see two people getting together. You've formed this friendship, and obviously, liked what he's doing with the PGA Hope program. So, how did you become involved, and what made you decide to want to get involved? What made you decide to want to pursue that as a way of giving back?
Well, sure. I mean, first I wanted to get involved in the program, and then I went through the program and then talked to Rich and the whole deal. And we talked about, I asked him about more volunteering opportunities, of course, and because I felt a calling to this great program. And so I asked Rich, what can I do? And he goes, I would like for you to be a peer mentor here at Stone Oak Ferry. And that's great. I mean, and so I said I took that on proudly. And I just saw. I mean, you just see these veterans and these guys that are PTSD. These guys that are in wheelchairs and that come out and they get involved in this game of golf. And I don't think Rich is kind of went on this, but the paramobile devices that they have, where these guys, that are paralyzed, and you put them in these carts. And there's a friend of ours, Harold Hill, and Rich knows who I'm talking about. And he came out, and George Thompson, right, exactly. And he came out, and you could tell that he was a little bit, he was a little bit shy what was going on. And he got involved in the program. He saw that, there's guys out there that cared about him. There's guys out there that wanted him to do well, and he got in that paramobile cart, and his eyes lit up, and he was playing golf. He's playing golf again. I believe he'd played golf before, if I'm not mistaken. I think, Rick. Just to see him and see what he came with, the light in his eyes, and he could see that he could play golf, and he had these guys that really cared about him. And that's the thing. It is. You have these, veterans are. Veterans are just a really cool class of guys. I mean, we speak the same language. We talk the same language, that's for sure. And we really had this camaraderie as friends, and we had this camaraderie as veterans. No, be it where I'm a coastie, I'm a shallow water sailor, I'm a brown water sailor, I'm a hooligan. All these guys go to war, the whole deal. And I catch crap from that, believe me, because me and Harold both, because the whole deal, But the whole thing is that we all talk the same language. We love being around each other. It's a fellowship. It's a brotherhood. It's something that is just really special to all the guys that get involved in this. And I mean, it's good for my soul. It's good for my heart. And I think I've told that Rich before. And it's just one of the best things I have ever got involved in my almost 60 years of being on this life, on this planet. And, and I've gone on almost 40 years of being, involved in a military organization and as an active duty civilian. And I'm telling you right now, the best thing you could do is, as a veteran, if you like the game of golf and you have that thing, is get involved in the PGA Hope. And you're gonna have a great time, and you're gonna meet some great people. You're gonna meet veterans. You're gonna meet guys that you've gone through, and guys that you would, there's this thing, I would bleed blood for my brothers, and that's something that's in the brotherhood of the military. If you got a friend, and I got many of them, I will go to war with them. I will bleed with them. I'll go to fights with them in a bar, and I'll bleed with them. That's how it is. But that's what you see in this organization. And I Rich and Perry and all those people that have brought this, and the PGA, of course, that have brought this to the folks, our veterans, us, to bring this and help us with this is amazing. And that's there's nothing else I can say about this great organization. So I'm proud to be a part of it and be involved. So
and certainly as you should. Rich, I think, it was said a few moments ago that, many of these, men and of course, women who have served, many of them maybe played golf before they went out on did their tour. And unfortunately, when they come back, sometimes whether it's a physical injury or PTSD or some other affliction, if you will, that they're dealing with, many of them come back and they don't realize that there's a lot of challenges to overcome, but that doesn't mean that they can't go back and do things. And I think this is really what your program says to them, is not only are we here to help and here to join in a camaraderie, if you will, in a brotherhood, as Sean put, but it's also to let them know that, yes, there's going to be some changes, and yes, some things are different, but you can still go back and enjoy many of the things that you did before, and here's how we're going to do that. And that's really what you and the other group involved with the PGA Hope done. And I want you to talk a little bit about, because you mentioned, and Sean actually just mentioned his name a moment ago, but PGA professional Perry Green is also, he's the lead instructor there. Tell us about his role. Is he sort of overseeing everything and working with the rest of you, or what's his, how is he sort of fitting into things?
Well, the PGA of America sponsors the Hope program, and when we first started, Fred and I were asked to champion the program, and in order to have it, we needed to have a PGA professional in order to host the clinics that way and be the lead professional. And Perry was the one that I had targeted the most, because I had known Perry for a while. And Perry had worked with this young gentleman with severe autism. It had changed his life, and his story was on Golf Channel just about the same time Fred's and my story was on Golf Channel there. So it was a perfect team there, and we've been administrators of the program for the last 5 years, and we talk about how what the problems are, what we need to fix, work through, and get that way. We developed that program, and since the last few years, we developed a Veterans Council as well, where each branch of the service has a branch chief on there, and they're an advisory committee. And now all of the PGA instructors, the lead instructors for all 5 of our courses here in Charleston, they're on a board as well, so that we're able to make some good decisions that way going forward. But it's been the big hallmark of what we've done here in Charleston has been the teamwork. We work well together. We find a way to get things done. If we need to expand the program, we're never going to turn away a veteran. If that veteran's going to get help, we'll find ways to add, playing groups where we had the PGA Hope graduate card, where the veterans can play all these golf courses for a veteran honoring rate in the Charleston area that's now expanded nationally as well. But we've always found a way to take care of as many veterans as possible and keep them active in the program, because the camaraderie of the game, when you learn how to play, when you get involved in this program, the camaraderie is the key. And that is what was missing for so many of these veterans for so many years when they left the military. Their families didn't understand the experience of having PTSD or another challenge. They had lost that unit cohesiveness, basically. So the camaraderie is a great element. And now the VA is starting to understand the value of recreation therapy programs from that aspect, where they can do as much counseling as they can do there, but the camaraderie with fellow veterans is really the key. And, as someone who went through my own challenges and then being, so to speak, the original peer mentor with Fred, that's what I wanted to get to the veterans here, so that they got that therapeutic benefit themselves of giving back. The 12-step programs from addiction counseling, what's the last step? Giving back by mentoring somebody else, right? Right. That's where that idea came from, and working through. So that's one of the big benefits for a lot of our veterans that have become peer mentors. So.
Yeah, and
can I ask something quick? I mean,
go ahead, Sean.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the one thing that Rich said, camaraderie. Camaraderie is huge when it comes to veterans. That's all I'll say. The camaraderie is probably the biggest word
that if you were probably to ask a veteran, what did you enjoy most about the military? Said camaraderie, that willingness to serve. So I'm sorry I interrupted, but that the camaraderie was a great word, and that's huge. That is just amazing. So thanks, Rich. That was good.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Let me just add something to those. I mean, I served a period of time, obviously not during wartime, but in military. So I'm familiar with that term. What I want to point out that I think a lot of for a lot of our regular folks that are listening in that have never been served in a unit like that, I think what people don't understand is even though once you, particularly if you're in a deployment and you might get spread out from your group or from your troop during a campaign, there's still that connection because your comrades, as you put it, are there they've got your back. What I think a lot of people misunderstand is when these veterans come home, when these military folks come home from their deployments, they can't just plug back in and pick up as normal with their families, even though they love their their spouse and their children. They can't wait to see them. It's not that simple. It's a transition that has to happen, and I think this is where the rest of the folks out there don't understand. I mean, some of these men and women have served years together. It's like working, and I'm not trying to draw the comparison, but it's very similar. If you've worked with a company for 5 years, you've worked with the same people, and and then all of a sudden you're retired tomorrow. There's a certain emptiness in your thing. Well, just amplify that many times more with the veterans because now you're adding more stress and more conditions that are very life-threatening on top of that. So you're relying on those people much more than you would in the boardroom, let's say. So when they come back with these different afflictions, addictions, and PTSD and all these other things that go with it, they can't just wheel in the driveway and say, "Honey, I'm home," and let's just go out and do whatever. There's almost an unpacking, if you will, and almost a new deployment, I would say, in the general society. And I think that those outside of the military don't fully understand that, and even some in the military are starting to recognize that. So this is why programs like PGA Hope and that are so crucial for these men and women to understand that there's people out there that get it, that understand what you're going through, and you need to reach out to these programs for that assistance, and that's what they're there for. And I think, as you put earlier, Sean, this is an opportunity because, again, you've served in a similar capacity, that you get it, you understand that, and you having the ability to give back really amplifies the fact that you do understand what these people are going through. And obviously, Rich, you went through your own tragedy, not during battle, but you again know the same feelings that you went through. So
well, understand one more thing. My father and my grandfather were both disabled veterans. My grandfather from World War I, my father from served in World War II. So from the family aspect, I saw the effects of some of the different things and with that. So there's the PGA professionals and the people that flock to this program to help. The PGA professionals either military themselves or their family is in military. The volunteers the same way on that side, and that's a beautiful thing from that standpoint. That's who seems to be attracted to our programs. We'd love to have more physical therapists involved and psychological counselors and sports psychologists and work in that way there because, we need as much help as possible. Right now there are 132 chapters of PGA Hope nationally. And we've got 5 here in Charleston. We've got 12, going to be 13 in the Carolinas section, but 37 out of the 41 sections of the PGA are involved. And there's about 3,000 veterans nationwide. Of that total, we've got about 350 here in Charleston. So
wow, that's incredible.
Huge part of the program from there. But we, as Sean will tell you, we find ways to keep veterans involved. And right now we've got close to 50 peer mentors that are helping us.
Amazing. And it's like a family. It's a family effort. It's a team effort. And I think the many veterans that are participating in that, I think that's what they appreciate the most. Is it makes, I think the other thing that a lot of, and I hate to use the term regular folks who go every day to a different job and have not been involved with the military, again, don't understand the mindset. But everybody in society, we want to have a sense of belonging. And as somebody that's been in the military, you understand that and you have that. And then when that's suddenly taken away, whether it be through completing your service or through injury and you're having to get out, suddenly that is a missing element, and it's very hard to deal with. And as you pointed out the stats earlier, I mean, we're losing many of the veterans by not being able to cope with some of that. So it's crucial to reach out to them. And I think anybody, if you've got somebody in your family, this is a great opportunity, who has served and maybe has come home particularly recently, or even if they've been home for a while, and maybe you notice that they're struggling at times. This is a great opportunity. Even if they've never played golf, this is a great opportunity for them to learn something new. And what's interesting about the spirit of military folks is they can adapt to anything. And they will rise to the challenge no matter what they're faced with. They just need to know that somebody's there that's got their back when they need it. And I think this is what the PGA Hope program does for them. I believe that's what it truly does. And you should be commended, Rich and Sean and all of the others, Perry, Fred. I mean, what an inspirational story, that you guys have done. And that's why it's been successful.
And veterans will tell you, they need to have someone that cares on that right. side, and that's what I think we've done throughout. But as we said, the missing link has been, when someone leaves the military, they feel alone. Well, with this program, you've got somebody that's got your back 24/7. You can call up another veteran, who has your back. And that's what the peer mentor program was based on, and that's what comes through. And it's a great lifeline if need be at that point.
Yep. Well, and also the folks that are involved and understand. And as I was alluding to earlier, with many of families back home here, they don't appreciate it. They just see their loved one has come home, and they think, okay, let's pick up kind of where we left off, and that's just not possible. Even if it's been a short deployment, it changes you as a person. And I think that this is something too that the families have to understand. They have to be kind of retrained to accept that individual back into the family, and they have to be patient. Patience is a can be a wonderful thing if it's applied appropriately. And so programs like this and others that are out there are there for a reason, and it's good to see them expanding. I want to, because we only have unfortunately a few minutes left, and I promised I would do this. So Sean, I'm going to bounce this one back to you, and again, we've got a few more minutes, but so you'll have to edit it down a little bit. But a good friend of yours, Chris, called in before we went live and wanted to make sure that I asked you this question. And I'm going to set this up a little bit differently. As most of you know, over the last several weeks, I took over Golf Tips magazine, and our first issue coming out on newsstands June 16th is going to feature this particular individual on the cover. And I'm, of course, talking about the late king himself, Arnold Palmer. And according to Chris, you have an interesting story to share of the time when you met the king. Share that with us.
Yeah. Absolutely, it's a great story. I'll make it short, but I was working at the Ocean Course as a caddy, and when I believe that the Warburg Cup came through there, the Arnold Palmer was one of the captains, and so I worked the range there. And Arnold Palmer, anybody doesn't know, was a hooligan. He's a coastie, so he came in the Coast Guard out of the force. But anyway, so I said, hey, Mr. Palmer, one day I said, you and I have something in common. And he goes, what's that, son, the game of golf? I said, no, sir, I'm a hooligan, too. And he looked at me, and he goes, you're a hooligan? I said, yes, sir. I said, what do you do? He goes, what are you doing out here? I said, well, I just retired from the Coast Guard, and this is my dream job. I came out here to work. So him and I got to talking a little bit, and, he he would say, Sean, how you doing every morning? I said, Mr. Palmer, I'm doing fine. So the last day of the tournament, he goes, Sean, he goes, I want to thank you for your service. I said, Mr. Palmer, I'd like to thank you for your service too. And so Gary Player was the other captain. He goes, what? And he goes, Arnold, what are you talking to the range rat about? So the range rat. So I was working on the range. He goes, oh, give this boy some respect. He was a hooligan. He goes, oh, that's what you're talking about. You used to be in the Coast Guard. You were a hooligan too. He goes, that's right. Give him some respect. So he took my hand the whole deal, and I had a cap on my head. And so he goes, Sean, you want me to sign your hat? And I said, yes, sir, I sure would. And he signed my hat, and he looked at Gary, and he slapped the hat in his chest, and he goes, here, Gary, sign the boy's hat, and he does it. It's in my bar, and that was my with Arnold Palmer. He was a great man, and he really being in the Coast Guard, and a lot of people don't know that, but it was a bond we had right there, and I enjoyed talking to him every day. He came by and said, hey, Sean, how you doing? So that's where that comes from. So, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, thank you to you, Sean, for sharing that, and thank you to Chris for setting that up to have me ask that. What's interesting about Arnold, I obviously never had the pleasure, as you did, and didn't have him on the here, but I did interview Gary Player, and what was interesting about that particular time in golf was it really was a gentleman's sport. People like Arnold and Gary and Jack and that, they just had a certain swag. I mean, obviously nobody had swagger like Arnold did, but they just had a certain demeanor. They always, they were always very gracious and appreciative of the people that followed them. And Arnie, Arnie earns Arnie's Army. It was a well-deserved honor for him. And I think because he was so down to earth, and he would literally, reach out to anybody. So you obviously had a very special moment, Sean, that you were able to share with him. And I know that's a memory you'll have, for the remainder of your time. And you certainly should enjoy that. And, I think what I would obviously like to do in our closing moments, Rich, I'm going to come back to you, and I would like the listeners to really take note, but I want you to maybe just share some great ways. Number one, how can they learn more about the PGA Hope? Is there a website that you can direct them to? Is there, somewhere that you can specifically direct them to? But also maybe some ways that they can help out, whether it being through a peer program or other ways that they could potentially help give back to our military.
Okay. Well, first website to visit would be pgareach.org, which is the PGA of America's website, which has a listing of where all of the different chapters, all 132 of them, are across the country, and it even has contact information for each section and each location, who to contact to get involved. And, definitely, if there's not a chapter in your area, work with a PGA professional to get a chapter involved. Usual requirements is there's enough veterans to be able to support a program. So you need a city that's got a VA that's got support that way. Get the vet counseling centers involved. Get the physical therapists involved that way. That's one of the best ways to do it. Pester a PGA professional to do something if there's not a program already working on there. But, if somebody has veterans groups that they're involved with, certainly elicit their help to do this, because these programs are extremely beneficial to the veterans, and we're fighting an interesting battle, obviously, with having them have that camaraderie, which has been life-saving throughout as well. And from my personal perspective too, I just want to thank all of our veterans for their service on that side. They are coming from a veteran family, coming from my father and my grandfather having been disabled. I want to thank the VA. I want to thank everybody that way. But I also want to thank the first responders that helped save my life, and especially the Coast Guard, who life flighted me to the hospital there when the odds were very low that I would survive on that side. So I just want to thank everyone that paid the highest sacrifice for our country, as well as those that have served throughout as well.
well said. And, just on sort of a side note here, just to sort of hammer the point home, Rich, you point out here in some of the notes that you sent me that, nearly 8 million Americans currently suffer from PTSD, not just the military veterans, but first responders and even victims of sexual abuse and other individuals that have been in traumatic accidents like yourselves. So, there's a lot of folks that are in that category, and it's obviously we want to focus on all of them, and particularly our veterans who have served and whatnot. So it's not small potatoes. It's a big it's a big pool of people to deal with, and so we need to help get that word out there. So visit those websites, and you can reach Rich. You're all over social media, so I know they can find you. But
I'm easy to find, Rich O'Brien Golf. But Ted, before you go on that side, we've got the Veterans Program for PGA Hope, but on the civilian side, there's adaptive golf programs that are growing.
That's right.
Very well as well, and that's what my golf therapy site on Facebook's all about, is to get and connect everybody along those lines. And it's become sort of like the Golf Wire of adaptive golf on that page. So that was why it was created. So if you see somebody that looks like you or has a similar challenge doing something, you might just get inspired. Right. And then we got training available for the pros too. So.
Yeah. And that's, and that's another area as well. I mean, many of the pros that are out there are certainly very skilled and talented, but I think it takes a little extra special when you're dealing under these circumstances. And I know there's specific things that need to be done. And I know that the adaptive golfer programs out there are also building momentum. I know when I was at the PGA show this past January, there was a growing and bigger presence down there than there has been in the past. So it's becoming more. It's becoming more in the forefront, and obviously with organizations like the PGA of America and others that are using their resources to help bring it to front and center. So, guys, I want to thank both of you for coming on, and I'm glad we were able to connect so soon after our mishap last week. But I really appreciate, Rich, for you coming on, and you're welcome back, and you as well, Sean. And very quickly, I know that there's something coming up in the fall, Rich, that you and I were talking about. Let the folks know about that. There's something coming up in the fall.
There's a few things coming up in the fall. There's, we're going to have our clinics starting back up in September on there, but there's an event that's taking place that's the Disabled Ryder Cup, basically. It's called the Phoenix Cup. And that event is going to take place this year in Scotland. One of the dates will be at Carnoustie. One of the days will be at Glen Eagles and a few sites there, which is the Solheim Cup, the British Open taking place there as well. The Ryder Cup has been there. And I was selected to participate on that team, representing the United States. Honored to be selected, certainly from that standpoint, and working through. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to go on there. Financially, I've been affected by the situation right now, and working through there. And then our clinics are going to, with the logistics of coming back from the clinics, it looks like I would have to miss like 3 or 4 weeks of the clinic. So it's just not going to happen this time. But certainly an honor to be selected to that, and also to be on the National Alliance for Accessible Golf Board of Directors as well. But amazing to see. 12 years ago, I was on my deathbed, and somehow we got up, and we've been able to do some good things.
Well, we are grateful for a number of things. First and foremost, that you are here. We're grateful to Sean and his team for being able to respond as quickly as they did to ensure that happens. And we're obviously grateful, as are all of the veterans who have not only been directly impacted by the programs that you're involved with, Rich, and all of the other mentors that assist you. But you're doing a phenomenal thing, and we want to thank you for doing that. And it's been an honor to have both of you on the show. And I know that the many veterans that are tuning in tonight, I know wanted to hear that story once again, and I was glad to be able to share it. So you're welcome back anytime, guys, and good luck with everything. And I know we didn't get a chance, Rich. We were going to try to sneak in the fact that you were playing 100 holes the other day. We're going to have to save that for next time when you come on. But thank you, guys. God bless to you both. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing, and keep up the great work.
All right. Thanks,
you have a great night.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, everybody.
All right. That was Rich O'Brien, the co-founder and operations manager of PGA Hope in Charleston, and also Sean Schrum, who is the lead command center controller for the United States, Coast Guard, also out in the Charleston and South Carolina area. Of course, they're involved with the PGA Hope in the Charleston area. So for those of you veterans that are tuning into the show, you definitely need to reach out if you're not involved currently with the program or not maybe that familiar. You need to reach out to the PGA Hope in that area or other areas. You can certainly even Google it and find a chapter near you. We're going to be joined here in just a moment. I'm just waiting for him to come on board. But Ted Simons, the president of and executive director of Patriot Golf Foundation, another organization that helps many veterans out there. We're going to talk to him here in just a few moments. But I want to remind everybody to as I mentioned a little while ago, that recently I acquired through my company iGolf Sports the Golf Tips magazine, which has been a publication now for going on 32 years. It's been very well received over the years, and lots of great things happening. And my first issue since taking over the magazine is going to be available just in a few weeks, just in time for Father's Day. So it's going to be on newsstands June 16th, so it's about a week before Father's Day. So if you're thinking of something to get Dad, and you know he's a golfer, or even if he's not a golfer, there's some great, interesting stories that you'll find within the pages of the magazine. It's going to be available at, obviously, with some of the current situation going on with COVID-19 and other, obviously, more recent issues. Some of the stores still have not been completely back open, but it is available at many of the Barnes & Noble and also Books A Million and other newsstands. So just check for that. Or if you want even a better idea, you can subscribe to Golf Tips Magazine by going to golftipsmag.com, and you can get 6 issues, which is it's a bi-monthly magazine. You can get all 6 issues for the next year for Dad, which I'm sure he'll like. Will be filled with some great tips, lots of helpful and useful stuff for him to improve his golf game or even start up the game, and some great travel destinations that he'll be able to enjoy, and others in the family as we get ready to get things open. But you can go to golftipsmag.com and subscribe. It's $14.97 for the 6 issues. All right. As I mentioned, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest, Ted Simons. He is the president and executive director of the Patriot Golf Foundation. Let me just tell you a little bit about him, and then I will bring him on the show. The Patriot Golf Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising money for and improving the lives of U.S. military veterans and their families through its Patriot Golf School platform. He's also the co-founder and managing director of Legacy DevCo and Legacy Holdings, a U.S.-based impact development investment company involved in energy, agri-tech, residential, and commercial projects. Please welcome Ted to the show. Good evening, Ted. How are you?
Hey, good to be here, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing very well. We are having kind of a special show tonight. We're honoring many of the veterans and first responders on tonight's program. Preceding you, we had Rich O'Brien, who is the co-founder and operation manager of PGA Hope in Charleston, and he was accompanied by another friend of his, Sean Matthew Schrum, who is a lead commander at Center Control in the United States Coast Guard out in South Carolina as well, in Charleston. And they're doing some great things for veterans, and I couldn't think of a better way to experience on the second half of the show having you here to talk about your foundation. So let's start the conversation this way, and that is, as I mentioned, Patriot Golf Foundation is a nonprofit organization which raises money and helps to improve the lives of U.S. military veterans and their families through that program. Tell us a little bit about how did the foundation come into existence and what's its overall mission? What are some of the things that you're doing with the foundation?
Well, the basis for the formation of the foundation came from kind of co-founder Seth Velasco, who back in the day was one of my directors of instruction when I was with Nicholas Golf Academies. And Seth, many years ago, had the opportunity to attend the first Patriot Cup, the Patriot Golf Club in Oklahoma, and heard Dan Rooney's message, and was so moved by it. He spoke to Lieutenant Colonel Dan that evening and said, we can further your cause. You have a love of golf. You're a PGA member. We love your mission here. Why don't we put on Patriot Golf Schools and designate funds from those golf schools to go back to Folds of Honor? That happened back in 2011, and some things happen. They don't move along too quickly. And Seth reached out to me, oddly enough, at the 1st of October when I was making a career transition, and said, okay, Simons, here's my deal. I want to really get this going with the Patriot Golf Schools. And it was just perfect timing for me. I loved the vision. I loved the cause, and said, okay, great. We're going to start the Patriot Golf Foundation. And under that umbrella will be the Patriot Golf Schools. And we will do national golf schools and not only designate funds to various military foundations, but also involve veterans in each of our golf schools so that we can not just help impact them financially, but also bring them into the game of golf a little bit more fully. And so that's where it started. It started in October, and we had an initial event in December, another one in January, and as things unfolded, our golf schools have been on hold.
Yeah, and as it has, obviously, I think everybody realizes that a lot of good programs like yourself and many others out there that help the veterans and so forth, unfortunately, are kind of have been in limbo for a little bit, while we go through this process. But I'm seeing, as they say, the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to ask you before we get into specifically about the schools and that. Maybe you can give some of the folks the ideas, because I don't think, as I was talking to my earlier guest, I don't think a lot of the folks really understand some of the challenges and the struggles that many of the veterans go through. Obviously, some of them have been affected physically. Some of them are dealing with things like PTSD. Some of them have both, and many other, issues that they're challenges that they're dealing with. When you guys put this together, obviously you want to help them. What are some of the ways, and I know you're doing it through various organizations that you're raising funds for and that, but what are some of the things that are being done through the charities that you're working with and the organizations that you're working with that do give back directly? What are some of the things that they're doing for these veterans that is able to help them?
Well, in addition to the financial side of it, which, when we started this mission, if you will, we just wanted to be part of the process and provide more funding for all of these, very worthwhile causes that are helping our veterans and their families. But one of the things that we know is how much golf can help these veterans, as you mentioned, whether it's physically, whether it's PTSD. One thing that we've noticed in the schools that we have been able to, the camaraderie effect of bringing in, 8 to 10 veterans that have never met one another, varying ages from Vietnam veterans to, recently, not retired, but have left the military service and they're only in their late 20s, and be able to spend a full day with golf instruction, lunch, 9 holes on the golf course, a reception afterward, and be able to share their experiences and create something that they've really lost because of their time in the service was such a team, and then they're released and are on their own. And so whether they're good golfers, bad golfers, it didn't matter. The time they spent together was our benefit more so than making them a better golfer and having more fun.
And that's an interesting point because, excuse me, I think that really for most of the veterans that, maybe once played golf before, and obviously they were sent out on deployment, for maybe on several occasions or over several years, when they're coming back and they've sustained an injury or what have you, or are now dealing with PTSD, many of them, as you put it, they were dealing with the camaraderie, if you will, when they were overseas or on deployment. And when they come back, as you said, they're very, very alone. And, I mentioned this earlier on the show with my other guests, that one of the things that a lot of them have a difficult time do is plugging back into their families, because their families don't truly understand. And it's not even so much the battles that they face, because they're trained and they're prepared for that, but they don't understand that they've lost that connection with their comrades and their fellow soldiers and whatnot. And now suddenly that's gone. So they're not only dealing with the injuries that they have to deal with, I think most of them are able to deal with quite well, but now they have to deal with that disconnect from their military family, and that's a difficult thing. So when you're working with some of these veterans in the various schools and the programs, would you say that's the biggest challenge, more so than their golf game? I don't think they really care. I mean, obviously they want to get better, but that's really not to them in the forefront. It's a way of reconnecting and having that camaraderie and having a common goal once again, and challenge, if you will. They just want to feel like they're part of something once again. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
That's very accurate. But that became a byproduct of how we approach this. So, we look at the healing power of golf because we have a number of gentlemen and ladies that are involved in our foundation, and they literally talk about how this saved their lives. I mean, it got them out of bed to go to rehab. It allowed them to get back into competition because they were competitive high school athletes or even college athletes, and they lost that competition from their injuries, and suddenly golf allows them to be competitive. One of the things, one of the groups that we've aligned with is an organization called VetTix, Veteran Tickets, and they solicit and have donations of sporting events, concerts, society events, you name it, and organizations and individuals and companies will donate their unused tickets or even just tickets in general to VetTix, and then through their membership they then allocate those tickets to these veterans and their families. And so we got aligned with them. They're based here in Tempe, Arizona, and for the vets to get their pass, if you will, to come to a Patriot Golf School, they have to go online, they have to sign up, they have to commit to a handling fee, which I think is around $14. So that when we have these veterans show up, we know they're committed. They want to be there. They want to be there to experience golf, to experience what we're offering for that day. And so they show up with the intent of, I'm going to come to improve my golf game, and they walk away with so much more that even I don't think they were expecting. They were just expecting to putt better, chip better, it'll drive 20 yards longer. And they walked away with 7 new friends or 10 new friends. And that part of it is unbelievably rewarding.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think you're exactly right. I think we have really an opportunity with golf because it's unlike any other sport. I think golf, has for years, and you know this, being around the industry for as long as you have, the other sports, as wonderful as they are, pale in comparison to how much golf has done for various charities, over the years. I mean, there's more golf. I mean, everybody, when there's a worthy cause, somewhere along the food chain, you're going to find a golf tournament attached to it. And it's just a great way of getting people out. It's a great game. And in this particular case, when you're dealing with many veterans who, again, are struggling and have challenges, both physically and mentally, and financially, and you touched on that a little bit in the beginning. I think that's even an area that a lot of folks don't understand is, because they know that they're being paid in the military, they're kind of thinking to themselves, well, I don't understand what financial challenges. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and put some perspective on it, because it's not just, paying the mortgages, and it's not just the things that they're dealing with, like normal folks are dealing with. Now that they've come home, many of them have other financial challenges that have come up because of injuries and stuff. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit and why it's important that people pay attention to this.
Well, what we've done is, there's a lot of tremendous charities and foundations that support the military veterans. We tried to, without excluding anyone, but channel our efforts and our relationships into different groups that support different avenues, if you will. So in some cases, it could be, say, Folds of Honor, and their tremendous charity, which supports veterans and their families, but by providing scholarships to these children. So whether it's even from high school through college, to provide education to these children who, honestly didn't have a choice as to the sacrifice their mother or father made. Others, it could be an animal support group, whether it's Canine for Warriors or any of the other operations that are out there, to be able to provide service dogs to these veterans that will help them so much, as they suffer through PTSD and have companionship. So we look at different avenues and say, okay, where can we, what groups can we align with and support? The Pat Tillman Foundation that provides scholarships for actual veterans. The Camaraderie Foundation out of the Southeast that does so many great things. Fairways for Warriors that is somewhat similar to what we do, but ours is strictly focused on using golf schools or golf instruction to spread our word and to raise awareness. So we look to align with certain avenues that we know are maybe a little bit unique in their category, and there's not one group out there, no matter how big they are, from Wounded Warriors to Folds of Honor to the rest, that cannot use additional financial support for their causes, and that's what we want to do.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's really a never-ending story, because there's always going to be conflict, and you're always going to have men and women who have to serve from time to time in various different conflicts. And sometimes I think people misunderstand when we hear, because when you look at it from an overall picture, as an example, we see these different conflicts and battles that have gone on over the decades. And I think people are under sort of the misnomer that when the veterans or when the military folks come home, that's it. They just plug back into family and everything's sort of normal. We all go back to our daily lives. But what they don't realize is there's a lot going underneath the surface. And as you know, and as anybody that's involved with these different programs, unfortunately, there's a high suicide rate. Many of these people are not able to. And I want to clarify things, because I think people are under sort of a misunderstanding too. This is not always, I mean, obviously there are some cases, it's not always because of what they've witnessed or what they've seen or what they've been involved in. It's their inability to be able to come back in and deal with some of the stresses that they have dealt with, of course. But sometimes it's just a matter of assimilating back into a regular everyday life that can be challenging, especially when you're dealing with, catastrophic injuries in some case, or PTSD. So there's a lot of programs like you're offering and through your foundation that you're connected with that are able to help these people get through that. And some of the folks that are on your team involved, and I want to acknowledge them and get you to maybe touch on them a little bit as well, is through your golf schools. You have a master instructor staff, and some of the folks, Seth Glasgow, of course, was one you mentioned, and Mike Malaska, Mark and Kathy Wood are others, Gary Knapp, Dick Drager, Mike Gray, and Doug Roberts. Tell me a little bit about them. What function? Obviously, they're there to instruct and to help with that, but I think they play another role as well. Maybe you can touch a little bit on how that team sort of come about, and what are some of the things that they're doing to help these men and women that are coming to your foundation.
Well, we've been able to very quickly assemble, maybe one of the most experienced corporate golf instruction team that ever existed. The majority of our master staff instructors came from the Nicholas Flick Golf Schools, which back in the heyday was the preeminent corporate golf school, everywhere from Desert Mountain to Pebble Beach to you name it, Fortune 500, Fortune 100, Wall Street. This is the golf school that they came to combine their management staff and teams with their clients for 3 to 5 day experiences. That yes, it was focused on golf, but it was focused on team building and relationships. So before I jump into the instructors, which I'll get to, but
sure.
What we do with the golf schools is, so if we have a 24-person golf school, that will be 18 sponsors / patrons, and that will be 6 veterans that attend at no charge. And so these veterans are part of this group of 18 executives or 18 profile members of society and of their regions, and they could spend a full day with them and not only share their experiences back and forth, but create that relationship that even though, yes, we're raising money and we're going to do good things with it, and we're going to give them an avenue to, if you will, lose themselves for a few hours in the game of golf and hopefully use that healing going forward, but they're going to develop relationships with 3 or 6 or 18 potential mentors in the business world that no one can replace a day of golf and to what those relationships are formed. So that's a big part of what we do, and this master staff that we've assembled, they did that at the highest level. And when Seth and I started rolling this thing out, we reached out to these members of former Nicholas Flick Golf Schools or Golf Digest Golf Schools, and this is what they did at their peak. And each one of them went, "This is unbelievable. We're going to get the band back together again," because they enjoy the camaraderie. They enjoy the relationships that they built, whether it's with Morgan Stanley or Nationwide, or Piper Jaffray or whomever it may have been in the day. They still carry those relationships forward. So they understand how much this means, not just to the executives or the instructors, but now we're incorporating these military veterans, our American heroes, into this process. And there wasn't a one of them that said, no, we don't want to be involved. So we've been able to assemble this unbelievable team. We're based from Florida to the Northeast to the Midwest to the Northeast or Northwest to California. So whenever we do a national school, we can assemble a team, whether it's 3 instructors, 6 instructors, to come in and put on that golf school based on their availability, but also based on the budget. What are the goals of the individual golf school that we're going to be putting on? Yeah,
and again, I think that when you're dealing with something like this, having a well organized and versatile team put in place that has the experience, has the knowledge, not only from the golf side of things, but for some of the other areas that you're covering, makes it a much easier transition for many of these veterans. And as I said earlier, it's very difficult for some of these men and women that come home from various deployments that really don't have a place to turn in a lot of cases. I mean, they certainly do, but are not always aware of it, and it's important that we get that message out. I want to mention, and I just happened to jot one down here. I know you mentioned you had a number of different events that you had, but you had one back in February at the JW Marriott Camelback Golf Club in Arizona, and you had a one-day Patriot Golf School. Tell us a little bit about that event. What went on? Give us maybe an overview of what happened that day.
Yeah, we start with a kind of if you will, an initial gathering, kind of a light breakfast, get everybody registered, get the release form signed, all that great stuff that is now required, and even more so going forward.
Right.
Make the introduction so the staff knows the veterans know the sponsors. So we create, a little bit of a team, if you will. Then from 9 to noon, we're out on the lesson tee in the short game area. We break down into 4-to-1 ratios. So we have three sponsors with a veteran. In this cases, we had more veterans, but we had broken down so that over the course of 3 hours, we went from everything from philosophy to full swing to putting, chipping, pitching, so that they understood, our direction and our philosophy, which is, which goes back to, obviously Jim Flick because of the Nicholas Flick Golf Schools, Bob Koski, Jack Grout, which was obviously Mr. Nicholas's coach for many, many years, which is where my background comes from, working with Mr. Nicholas and his academies around the world. So we explain our philosophy. We get an understanding of their personalities and their games. We have a lovely 1-hour lunch. Again, socialization. We're mixing the veterans with the sponsors, with the staff, creating those relationships and bonds. And then we go out for a 9-hole playing lesson where the staff is able to accompany the players and work with them on course situations, which actually becomes a lot of fun. I get to be the outsider. I'm shooting video. I'm getting interviews. I'm taking pictures. I'm letting the experts do what they do, and I do what I do. And you get to see and experience just how much fun these veterans are having, and how much fun the sponsors are having, and how much fun the staff is having. When somebody hits a great shot, or somebody holds a putt, you understand that this is more than the game of golf. It's a means to an end, and they walk off the 9th green, and you ask about their experience, and I tell you what, 90% the first thing out of their mouth was camaraderie. So it didn't have anything to do with golf. It didn't have anything to do with what a great time we had, a lovely golf course, wonderful food. Thank you so much. It was the camaraderie that they experienced by having this new association with other veterans. You walk away going, okay, job done.
Yeah. Well, Ted, the thing that's interesting, and I've always said this, I've taught for 25 plus years, and I've always looked at I, as you do, I love the game, and I have obviously a different perspective than maybe somebody that just goes out and plays recreationally. But as a teacher, coach, and that I look at golf as really a vessel, and that I've learned to use over the years to really deliver, a message in one way, and I use it in, try to in a fun and creative way. And the statement that you just made about what the majority of feedback that you're getting kind of fits nicely with that, because
obviously they're out there to learn a little bit about the golf swing or how they can, make changes or adjustments, to suit their specific challenges. But really what most people get from golf is that camaraderie, if you really want to boil it down to something specific. And I think by doing what you're doing and working with the various foundations and organizations out there and charities that you're able to help, provide funds for, lets these people know that somebody actually out there really does care. I mean, I think they know deep down, but I think that sometimes they forget because they've been away for so long, and they just want to get out there and interact with everybody once again because they're used to doing something in a different fashion than the rest out there are able to do. And I applaud you and your team and all of the support staff that go along with it that do what you're doing. And I think that's great for somebody to step off the ninth hole or what have you and make a statement like that is a testament to your foundation.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's so rewarding to, again, just experience to look at their faces, to hear their excitement about, the time they spent. Some of them they took time off from a paid job to come.
Yeah.
So, they made a personal sacrifice to come. Some are retired, some are currently working. But there were a number that took time off from their paid job to come and spend that day, and it was an honor for us to be able to gift them that and provide them with a shirt, a hat, a pin, send them away with something that they remembered their day with, email them pictures of the group and some of their shots and some of their experiences, so that they this will become hopefully part of their memory bank that, we really, truly do care about them, want to support them, want to help them. And if we can make a difference, in one lives or 1,000 lives, I think our job is well done.
Excuse me. Well, it starts with one. That's the trick, is it starts with one, and then then it becomes 2 and 3 and so on. And, really I think what you're really doing in so many ways, and a lot of times I don't think people appreciate that, is you're really creating a memory for these people that they will never forget. They're coming over with and dealing with so many challenges in their everyday lives. They've, as I said earlier, they've served their country and faithfully, and sometimes they may not come back with a physical injury, but they're dealing with PTSD, and that's a whole another mess that they've got to deal with, and it's very tragic. I've met many soldiers and veterans who suffer from that, so I know full well what it can do. And for a lot of folks that are out there that are dealing with that, you offer something through your foundation, a way of really reconnecting with other veterans who have gone through, meeting new people, and it gives them a sense, even just coming up for that one day, leaving work and that, it gives them a sense of purpose for, even if it's just for one day, and it gives them the feeling that they take away that, I can do this. I can get back and enjoy something, for those that maybe had played golf earlier, or even if I never played it again, it lets them know that they're still the same person that they were before, and that there's people out there that are reaching out to help them in their time of need and helping them and giving them assistance where needed. So it sends a very strong message, and I guarantee you it resonates with each and every one that goes through your program.
Well, it also resonates with, again, the sponsors or the patrons that
Sure.
are there participating side by side. So, all of us get consumed with what's going on in our world and in our daily lives, before, what's happened over the past, 3-4 months.
Right.
And so for all of these gentlemen and ladies that have been part of participating with us, and to be able to spend that time with the veterans and to walk away going, you know what? I've heard about it, I've read about it, but now I really got a chance to experience it. You know,
right.
I got to listen to them open up and express what they go through on a daily basis. You know, I'm the first one to stand in line. I did not fully appreciate, you know, what these veterans are coming home to and how they deal with it. And so the more we can share this experience, and it's like a pyramid, you know.
Yep.
So you got 18 participants, you know, and that becomes 36, becomes 72, becomes 144. You know, it just starts to spread that message that these are what these, you know, gentlemen and ladies are going through and what they've done, what the sacrifices they made for us, and their children have made for us, their families. And you know, if we can just raise awareness, money's unbelievable. Obviously, helping the veterans through the healing power of golf is unbelievable. But you know, overall, if we can be part of raising that awareness that can get lost in the shuffle with whether it's the economics of the world or whatever may be going on, you know, what the veterans are going through, and you know, not discounted by any means. I mean, you know, the first responders, we want to morph into including first responders into our efforts as well, because they're every bit as patriots as the military veterans.
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking a moment ago, and unfortunately the name escapes me at the moment, but I remember speaking with a gentleman who has served for many years and came back and you know, has many issues that he's had to deal with. And I remember him sharing a story of him going to his physician for a checkup, and he hadn't, you know, been in a few months, and he went back, and he shared the story of how he went to something very similar to what you're doing, and his doctor said, you know, he didn't realize at first what he had done, and he, you know, explained to the doctor. And he said, you know, you're different than the last time I saw you. And he said, I went out and just the very things that you're talking about. He said, I met others who shared the same experience. I met new people. I made new friends, people that I probably would have never met. And I went out, and it was, you know, a day, 2 days, I don't recall now. But and he had an experience that really altered the way he looked at things. And he still had challenges that he had to overcome, and he still had to obviously get some medical attention and things like that. But just that short, brief experience of a day or possibly two changed the direction of how he was viewing things from what they did before. So the power of what you're doing definitely works, and there's many, many people out there that can share that story. And you're right, we have to spread that word, and that's why, you know, I do the shows that I do for this particular topic, is because I want people that are tuning into the shows to really understand it's not just the physical, it's not just the mental injuries that or afflictions that these people are dealing with. It's even the difficulty of trying to plug in when they come home. I just don't think people really fully understand that. So there's so many different challenges that they're faced with, and you know, those on the outside need to really understand that. You know, we touched a little bit, and you mentioned a few moments ago about, you know, our current environment out there with the pandemic and that, and obviously, you know, you led up to a number of different events and stuff, and obviously I know you had more planned, and they've had to kind of go on the back burner, at least for the time being. What is sort of the current status? What has are you sort of seeing a light at the end of the tunnel in the next few months coming up? If you've got some things planned that you know, schools that are going to be, you know, you know, shifted around from earlier dates, or where's the status now with the foundation?
Well, we're lucky enough, if you will, to be a young organization. So we didn't go into this with a lot of overhead, a lot of staff, and all of those types of expenses. So you know, we were able to scale back very quickly and, although painful, you know, easily.
Sure.
So we didn't really have any negative effect on the foundation per se. Going forward, it's a moving target right now. Yes, golf is
Right.
back. Golf courses are open. However, how many people can you have in a group setting? For the golf schools to work, there's a certain mass to. Our goal is to raise money for other foundations, so you have to have a certain mass of sponsors or patrons, if you will, to make it a meaningful donation. And each course is different, each club is different, each state is different. There's some states that are obviously more open than others, but week to week you don't know where that spike's going to come and if we're going to get the spigot turned back off. So right now we are working very closely with our master staff because they're spread around the country. They're kind of our boots on the ground to say, this is what's going on in New Jersey or Florida or Oklahoma or Arizona or California. Here's some clubs that are receptive. Here's what we're seeing, the vibe of the community as to potential sponsors and supporters of this initiative. So right now we're laying the groundwork. We're putting together skeleton programs of 1, 2, and 3 day schools. In the meantime, we're also making sure we've got we have all of our updated release forms. We've got sanitizers. We've got all the precautions that you need to have as responsible stewards of America. Doesn't matter what you think of the pandemic, it is real, and we have to make sure that if you want to use a sanitizer, we have the sanitizers. If you want to use a mask, we have a mask. Okay, you can choose whatever it may be, and there may be rules that we have to abide by at a certain club or a golf course. But I mean, I sent a survey out to all of our staff in the last couple of weeks. Basically asking simple questions. Are you comfortable traveling? Are you comfortable in a rental car, in a hotel, teaching in a group setting, at a reception? And 98% came back unequivocally, absolutely. Let's get going. We're ready to go. Yeah. There's a couple with other there's concerns. Sure. And I respect that. We all come from different viewpoints and different sources of information. But no, we're staffed up, ready to go, and it's really now we're in the throes of summer. I think it was only 109 here in Scottsdale, so it's kind of a balmy day for us. But so now we're in the throes of summer. Now we're shifting from the southern states to the northern states, and where are they at from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But no, we're ready to go. We unfortunately had to postpone our big April launch, which was at the Patriot Golf Club in support of the Patriot Golf Foundation, which was going to be a 3-day golf school, including Mike Malaska, and others to really blast this thing off and create some momentum behind it. And we're coordinating now with the Patriot Golf Club to find available dates and when the weather in Tulsa is acceptable, and we'll get that one organized and on the map for sure, and then start laying out some 1 and 2 and 3 day schools elsewhere. We now know that we provide a new and unique fundraising opportunity for all of these foundations that have been hit financially through the situation we are going through. So whether it's service animals, whether it's scholarships, whether it's another initiative, we can come in, basically white label and provide a new fundraising opportunity for virtually any foundation that's out there that they wouldn't otherwise realize. I mean, you can have a tournament, you can have a marathon, you can have a dinner and a raffle, but we're really the only group that's out there doing Patriot Golf Schools as a focus, and that's unique to them. And we can incorporate new sponsors, new patrons, and especially incorporate the military into the full activity.
Let me ask you. We're getting close to having to wrap up, but I wanted to ask you this question, just sort of to follow up on what you were talking about. How quickly, obviously you again, like everything, you have to kind of adapt to our current environment, but what kind of notice do you need? Like if you wanted to bring all the resources to bear and have a tournament, let's say in 2-3 months' time, how much leeway and how quickly can you put that together? So if you had something sort of planned, it was canceled, once you've gotten the go-ahead, how much lead time does it typically for you to get everything organized in order to put things in place? Are you at a point where it's a pretty quick turnaround once you have the go-ahead, or is it something that you need a certain period of time to get all the sort of ducks in a row, if you will?
No, we could do it as quickly as 30 days.
Okay.
But best case scenario is 60 to 90 days.
Sure.
But I've always been in the solution business.
Right.
If somebody came to me and said, hey, love what you guys are doing. We have an opportunity in 2 weeks. This is what we want to roll out. Guess what? Tell me the number of players.
You're there.
Let's put this deal together. I will find the coaches. All right. I will find the coaches, and we will put on a first-class event, whether we've got 6 months to plan or 1 month to plan. My background is more on the marketing side of things, so the brand and how we're portraying the brand and the experience is first and foremost as to what we want to put out there, because that then follows over as to what we're portraying to our veterans and the other charities and their sponsors, of course.
Sure. Yeah, and obviously right now there's still a lot of uncertainty, even though, as you mentioned, a little bit ago, that things are slowly starting. People are getting out and able to play golf, and some companies are able to reopen. And that it's been a very slow process, and it's been very difficult for many. And we don't know what the immediate future holds. We have to kind of wait and see. So it's kind of a standby right now for many organizations, particularly like yourself, that want to get out there and raise those funds. And now, in the meantime, are there other ways that listeners could help? Do you accept direct donations for different aspects of the foundation? That if somebody wanted to donate, let's say, to the Patriot Golf Foundation without actually having to attend an event, is there that opportunity as well? And if so, how do they go about doing that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they can go to our website, which is patriotgolffoundation.com. There's a very visible donate button there, and they can choose select amounts or can designate whatever amount they want, whether it's a one-time only or reoccurring. We also are actively seeking, although quietly right now, full sponsorships, corporate sponsors at different levels to help to really, if you will, get us moving to the next level. But again, we're patient. We don't want to be that guy that went out of the box too soon and created a situation that you can never walk back from. So we'd rather be cautious, even though we're not doing what we prefer to be doing, which is coaching golf to veterans and raising money for veteran organizations. But we also want to make sure that we're good stewards and are playing by the rules, as, if you will, painful as they are, because it's a moving target. We don't know from Oklahoma to Florida to New Jersey where we at on any given week.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. We have to, look at the big picture, and as much as we're all getting a little bit stir crazy and wanting to get back out and to have some sort of normalcy, we have to obviously be good stewards of our health and those around us. And I know things will change around sooner than later, but it's just a matter of being patient. We have to do what we can to help one another, and hopefully, our conversation tonight will open some eyes and some ears and maybe even some wallets and help certainly some worthwhile causes out there. So again, that website is patriotgolffoundation.com. You can go and visit. You can donate directly there if you want to help out, and you can also reach out to Ted Simons, the president and executive director of Patriot Golf Foundation, if you want to see how you can become involved with their organization, helping some of the various men and women out there that have served in the military. And we don't want to certainly forget the first responders out there that do equally get out there and are challenged. We want to let you know that we're thinking about you as well. But Ted, I want to thank you for coming on. I think this is the first time I've had two Teds on the show, one hosting and one a guest, and that's I think that's a first. But two Teds are better than one, I always say. So, you can tell I'm getting tired because I'm.
It was the ultimate TED Talk.
That's right. Ted, thank you very much for joining me.
Congratulations on Golf Tips. I had a long association with Golf Tips going way back to Dave Brennan when he was the publisher, and so I know the publication well, and I know you will serve it very well. So congratulations.
Well, I appreciate that, and on that note, I'm going to remind everybody, especially with Father's Day, or maybe you've got a favorite member of your family who served, what a great opportunity to give him a gift to help spur those golf juices, if you will. You can go to golftipsmag.com and you can actually subscribe today. And the first issue that I'm involved with is going to be hitting newsstands in a couple of weeks, June 16th. So it's going to be available at newsstands virtually everywhere. So, but thank you very much, Ted. As I said, I appreciate it, and continue up the great work, and don't hesitate to reach out if I can help in any way.
All right. Thank you for your time, Ted. We appreciate it.
All right. Not a problem. Thank you very much. All right. Have a good evening.
Okay. All right. Good night.
Okay. All right. That was Ted Simons, President and Executive Director of the Patriot Golf Foundation. I want to say a special thank you. And again, go to patriotgolffoundation.com. All of the information is there. And I also, once again, want to say thank you to Rich O'Brien, the operations manager and founder of the PGA Hope in Charleston, South Carolina, and also to Sean Matthew Schrum, lead command center controller in Charleston as well at the United States Coast Guard. Sean obviously helped make sure that Rich was still around and able to do what he's doing today. So we appreciate his service with the Coast Guard, and we appreciate what Rich is doing now, reaching out to so many veterans out there through the PGA Hope program out in Charleston area. So thanks, guys, for joining me tonight at Golf Talk Live. We will return to our normal schedule next week with, of course, the Coach's Corner panel coming back and another special guest. So I hope you'll join me. God bless everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight to Golf Talk Live, and I'll see you next week right here on the network at Golf Talk Live. God bless.
Thanks for listening to this evening's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. Remember to tune in each week at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. If you can't join us live, check out the on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts, or listen on any of the following social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course, Spotify. To get updates on future shows and upcoming guests, be sure to visit the show's Facebook page, Golf Talk Live blog. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. Remember to join me live each week for another great broadcast of Golf Talk Live. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.